All right, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to today's episode of the Designer's Den. I'm super excited today to have on as a guest Sadie at the side, Sadie Lowry, who I have had the pleasure of working with on a couple of projects. But rather than me try to do this long, stumbling, rambling introduction, I'm gonna let Sadie tell you a little bit about herself.
Well, mine's going to be just as long and stumbling, so
Right,
really.
right, but it's coming from you and not me, so it
Right.
makes it
Okay,
better.
okay. Hi, I'm Sadie Lowry. I am a writer, designer, and editor in the TTRPG sphere. I have been doing this now about a year and a half,
Oh,
I
has it
think.
only been that long?
Yeah, surprisingly. It feels like it's been forever.
Well, you
I
did do it through the decade of 2020, so
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of a time void. I think we all came out of that really like veterans of TTRPG design. Let's see. I'm known for a few Eberron adventures, my work on Adventurous Domestic Handbook. Um, what else am I known for? I was in the first Arcadia
mhm.
magazine by MCDM. Um, oh my gosh, I've done so much. My mind is going
Uh,
blank.
to be okay, a very important one that she's left out. She's also known for long, impassioned speeches about the proper use of dashes on Twitter.
It's true. It's true. I am known for that. Long Twitter threads about everything writing, but particularly dashes.
Dashes, and we'll probably circle around to that. Actually want to start today with the product you want to highlight. And so today, it's not one that Sadie's worked on, but it's one that she's had a lot of fun playing lately. And that is Alice is Missing, which is it's a whole game. It's an RPG.
Mhm.
Well, you want to summarize it? I would.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can summarize it. So the reason I wanted to highlight it is because it's informed a lot of my current thoughts about game design. I just recently played it with Bianca, Laura, Jess, Justice. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but um, so we just played it, and it's really informed a lot of my thoughts about game design um, and about creating new RPG experiences. The concept of Alice is Missing is that um, you play as a character that has a connection to Alice,
mm-hmm.
such as older sibling, secret girlfriend, one with a crush, and it is a completely voiceless game. Aside, there's a voicemail section actually in the beginning, but other than that, it's a voiceless game. For 90 minutes, it's a very set amount of time. You send text messages to each other, and guided by cards, you explore with each other what happened to Alice. And the reason it's really informed a lot of my current game design thoughts is that I feel it's kind of my preferred perfect blend of mechanics but also freeform storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's for those who haven't played it, it's you spend the first setup section of it creating the backdrop and the story together. So you have five suspects, but you decide together how they're related to Alice. Like, where did the creeper meet Alice? Why are they a creeper? What are they like? Or the bully. Why is the bully bullying Alice? One of them is the teacher. Well, what's the teacher doing to Alice? So you decide all that together, and same with the locations. And then you have cards that are pointed that are correlated to times. So like at 80 minutes you'll pull a card, at 70 minutes you'll pull a card, and it will kind of guide you. So it'll say pull this location or pull this person. You just got a text that someone saw Alice at this location 3 days ago. What did they
Ooh.
say about her? Why was she there? And so you're freeform storytelling, and you're having your own freeform interactions, and it's nudged a little bit by these cards. It's like the card will nudge you to be like, oh, this person just did something. Oh, they Alice was seen at this location. But otherwise it's all you. It's like you determined a lot of this, and so you just go with the flow for these 90 minutes, and you kind of get into your character, and you're just texting back and forth frantically. And the multimedia experience is really interesting to me because you have they have this YouTube video
Oh,
that yeah, it's a countdown timer and a soundtrack. And so you put on this really lovely music in the background. My favorite part was when they play the first song, and then at the end of the first song and if the second song kicks in, that's when you start talking. And the second song came on and I was getting ready to start typing, and I hear the song that, and it says something like "Dead Man Walking," and I was like, oh, I just had a really visceral reaction to that. I was like, Alice is heck dead. Ah,
uh,
it was really good. But and it ends up being this really multimedia immersive experience. You're using Discord, you're using Roll20 or Zoom. You're using Roll20, you have music and a timer, you have voicemails that you play at the end, your last voicemail that you left for Alice. And so it's like they took all this multimedia genius and immersiveness and packaged it into a really little playable game that you can accomplish in 3 hours. And it's guided, but it's freeform, and it's structured, but it's open. It's so cool. I really like it.
yeah, and I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I linked I guess a write up on the game from Vox, in chat for anyone who wants to read a little bit more on that. But honestly, Sadie just gave a really excellent recap of the article, and it also has a short video at the bottom on how to play. But I only recently found out about this game as well. I haven't had an opportunity to play it, but somebody was running it at the recent Mayday's online charity convention that I ran, and everyone who played it was like, "Wow, I'm kind of like feeling a little like haunted right now."
Yeah.
Like they're like, "I feel like I could have done so much more for her."
Yeah. Yeah, it really leaves you with that wistful like, "Oh my gosh, I that wasn't enough time at all." And I think that's why they limited it to 90 minutes.
Hmm.
I think that was a smart choice because the cards start coming more frequently. A little bit, not much, but like, instead of 10-minute intervals, you'll get a couple like 5-minute intervals as well at near the end, and they start escalating in terms of, because like the cards at the beginning are like, you know you heard something about this person, what was it? And then as you get closer, the cards are like, this person just texted you, this suspect, or this suspect just posted something really threatening on social media, what was it? And then as you get even closer to the end, it's like, you have evidence, you got a ping from Alice's phone, for example, and you know that she's in this location. And so the card design themselves, it's very like, it escalates, and by the time you get to that last 10 minutes, you're like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I've just maybe spilled my secret to this character, but we don't have time to really explore it or talk about it or come to catharsis about it. There's no time. And then there are multiple things that can happen to Alice at the end, well, to you and to Alice,
Hmm.
depending on how the story goes. And it was one of those games that I immediately went, I want to play again.
Yeah, and so just a little bit further elaboration on it. So the card mechanic that you're talking about. So there's character cards which give you like what's your background with Alice, what's your secret, and what's going to be the subject of your voicemail. And you do the voicemails first.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then as you're drawing through the other cards, they prescribe like motives and relationships. And so it really just kind of leads you down this path, and like everything does kind of just like amp up to the end. And like
Hmm.
you know, if other people, some of them are such as like, if other people are saying like, negative stuff, like, you get defensive on behalf of Alice, or
Hmm.
something like that, and it really just get to kind of get you involved and just like really engaged with the
Really
story.
engaged. Yeah. I think my motive card was, you want to ask questions. You want to ask tons of questions. And you are her best friend. Like I ended up playing the best friend, and then I got like, you want to get to the bottom of this. And
Of
so
course.
I was just harping on my co-players like,
Well, why don't you all care as much? Do you not, are you not concerned?
Let's go. And you determine your relationships at the beginning of each game too. So, and it makes it really replayable because, in one game Jack and Alice could be really close, in another game they could be totally distant. In one game Dakota and Jack could hate each other, and another one
They're best
Dakota could have a
friends.
secret crush on Jack. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's really, I think you could easily play this game 5 times with that and have it be fresh every time. I don't think you could play it like 500 because you have the same five suspects, you have the same 5 locations, and you have the same 5 characters
Hmm.
that are playing with you. I don't know that I could play this 500 times and feel like it was still fresh, but I feel like I could easily get a dozen playthroughs of this and
And
have a great time each
yeah,
time.
and potentially even more if you're constantly changing up your group, because even if you have the
Hmm.
same group and the same relationships, I mean, sorry, the same relationship, if it's a different group, like they're going to approach that differently.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so, there is a lot of replayability there, even though it's pretty small in scope of like only so many motives, only so many relationships, and like you said. Um, but yeah, so I dropped a bunch of links
Yes. Check
in the
out the
chat.
links. I think it's one of the cleverer short game designs I've seen. It's really inspiring me. I'm like, I want to make a game like this. I've been percolating in my brain. Like, I want to
Yeah.
make something like this. And so I think
And
that's the best thing you can say as a game designer is I played something and it makes me want to make something like this.
mhm. And the other interesting thing about it is like there's not a like dedicated like game master. So like, everyone is pretty involved in the actual like play of it. And so that's also kind of if you only really play Dungeons and Dragons, there's also another unique aspect of it. So if you want a
Mhm.
little something different, something maybe I mean, potentially a bit darker,
Yeah.
um yeah, give it a try.
Yeah. Give it a try.
Give it a try, yeah. Um, on the other hand, if you don't want something a little bit darker, you can check out any of the 22 things Sadie has on the DM's
22.
Guild.
Oh my gosh, it's 22.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just the ones with writer's credit.
Oh my gosh. Hot dang, I've been busy in a
I
year and a
know,
half.
I know. So I actually kind of wanted to start at the bottom here, start at the bottom. So the first thing that you put out on the DM's Guild was A Darkness from the Stars. And
Hmm.
it was a mystery.
Yeah,
How'd that go?
it went okay. It went okay. It's been very popular and it's been very well received. And I can't necessarily critique it that hard when so many people have played it and they've liked it. It was my first adventure through the RPG Writers Workshop,
Yes.
and I put it in Eberron because Eberron was intriguing to me.
It
Um,
kind of lends itself to mystery, a bit of that,
yeah, I
noir.
wouldn't say that it is totally 100% accurate to Eberron lore, or that I couldn't have done more with it. So that's why I always kind of put a disclaimer on it, like, okay, it was my first. Be gentle. But it's been well received, which has been really lovely. People have been very nice to it.
Yeah. I feel so my first one was also a mystery, not set in Eberron. I feel it
Why did
probably
we pick mysteries? Isn't that really hard to
cuz
design? Why did
yes,
we do
yes.
that?
Well,
Why?
because we're who we are. Um,
Yeah.
and it is, and I feel like if I had gone into this with a support group like the RPG Writers Workshop, I might have been a little better. I was very ambitious. It's not awful. It just feels awful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of, sometimes I look back and I'm like, how could I have made it better? And that's kind of the ever looming question, I think, for any creator is, but how could I have made that better?
Yeah. Always though. I mean, and that's pretty much something that any creator should be asking, like, because like no one's perfect. If
Hmm.
you are, I would like to know your secret.
Yeah. If you are, send a message to Ginny and I, because we want to know your secrets. Make a pact with the same patron deity,
Hmm.
patron creature that you've managed to find.
Or whichever infernal contract we need to sign.
Yeah, yeah.
deets. Um, and so after that pretty stellar entrance onto the M's Guild, it's a silver bestseller. Actually, let me make sure it's still silver.
I think it's Electrum now.
Yeah, it is Electrum. I was like, it's Electrum's bestseller now. So that is 251 copies at least.
Hmm.
Um, so pretty dang good for first thing getting it out there. But it it wasn't the first time you ever wrote anything. It might have been the first tabletop RPG thing that you published, but you've got a background in
Hmm.
writing.
I do. I have an extensive background in writing. I mean, we can dive into if this, I think this would be the perfect forum to dive into my sordid, like, Neopets role playing forum past.
Yes, yes.
Um, I have been writing since I was a kid. I also I majored in English and minored in editing at college. So I mean, I've been fiddling with words my whole life. It started with, I don't think it started with Harry Potter fan fiction, but that was one of the first.
That was like that was our big breakout, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know about you. I was more interested in the Marauders era. Like, I didn't want to write about like Harry and Ginny and Ron, and I wanted to write about like James Potter and Sirius and
I wanted to
Remus.
no, I wanted to write about all of the other people at the school. Anyone that
Okay,
wasn't
okay,
Harry, Hermione, and Ron.
okay. Yeah, okay. I was really big into, like, I wanted to explore James and Lily's relationship. Like, I was really inspired by that. So I
Yeah.
wrote a ton, like, Neopets forums. I started so many novels that like never went. I Okay, so fun story. I wrote a book, or I wrote the first few chapters of a book that I think I was trying to impress a boy, and
You know,
you know,
happens.
uh, yeah, and I gave it to him to get his critique because I found out he loved the same books I did. He liked Harry Potter and he liked, all these fantasy books, and so I gave it to him. And I remember, like, the biggest feedback he had was, "Your character names are stupid," and they were. He was not wrong, but I
Still,
want you to imagine me being like 14 and
your
like my
heart was just
heart
like
like
crushed.
crumbling. Yes.
Like, you
I I
could have said
swore
it a
off.
little nicer.
Yeah, I think he literally used the word stupid, and I was like
I mean,
14. And
that sounds like a teenage boy.
yeah, yeah. Like, all things considered, if he can't structure his critique, constructively, then was I really missing anything?
No, no.
So, um, so I swore off writing books for a couple of years, and then I came running back into its loving arms. So, here I am. I'm not really writing novels these days, but I got a couple of short stories published in college, and then I got, um, in high school. My teachers a couple of times liked my essays and my poetry so much that they made it into the school newspaper or got hung on their walls. Um, so I've kind of had a little bit of affirmation here and there my whole life
Hmm.
that has said, like, no, you're pretty good at this. This is something you can do. And I had big dreams in college of being an artist instead. And then when I came back to words, it was like, you know,
This is
this
art. This
this
is
is art, and it's where my home has been the whole time. I think I'm okay being here.
yeah. I mean, our paths were parallel for quite.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, we start out in the Harry Potter. I don't know that I would have ever considered that I had started writing a novel, but I suppose that I definitely did in
Okay.
hindsight. I mean, 60,000 words is a good foray into starting a novel.
Yeah, I mean, that's a novella. That's more than a novella.
Well, it wasn't the whole story either. That was like
Oh my
half of it, and I just
gosh.
quit.
This makes me glad because there are so many stories that I started and just quit. It's like you finish NaNoWriMo and you're like, you know what? I'm sick of this thing. Get it out of my face.
So that was actually the problem with me is like, I was writing it, and this was before I even knew what NaNoWriMo was, and then I started reading all of these the Harry Potter Big Bang ones that they do for NaNoWriMo, which are like hundreds of thousands of words long, and I just got
Yeah.
so discouraged, like, because
Oh
my
my
favorite fanfic
gosh.
author published one that was like 850,000 words long,
What?
and I was like,
No.
there were about 150 chapters in it,
Oh my
and I was
gosh.
just like, I should focus on something else.
Well, and I don't know about you. One of the big struggles for me was that I'm constantly getting inspired by everything that's around me. And that makes it really hard to sit and finish a long form project for me because by the time I get 70,000 words into something, something else has caught my attention. I'm like, wow, that show was really creative with how it did that, or that book really caught my attention with how it did that, or that game
And you're like,
really inspired me. And
can
you're like,
I really throw a plot twist in here to make it into this new thing that's caught
yeah,
my
what if I
interest?
just like transmog, like if I just twist it,
Hmm.
maybe I can make it into this new thing. And I think I don't know about you, but that makes it hard for me to commit to something for a long time because I'm always and I'm always of the mindset of like I can be better now than I was a year ago and 2 years
Hmm.
ago. And so it's so hard for me to look at something I started 1 to 2 years ago and go, no, this is good enough to keep going. I'm like, no, 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 I can do better now.
Yes,
Get
exactly.
out of my
I
face.
mean, similarly, I got, you know, I don't want to say accolades, but like, I had a story. Uh, I guess it was, you know, fantasy or sci-fi. I'm not really sure which. Future problem solving from one of my gifted classes in middle school, and they
Uh-huh.
liked it and they published it. And apparently, the plot was very similar to a movie with like Vin Diesel in it or something. I don't remember. I hadn't seen the movie.
Oh no.
They were just eerily similar, but that got published, and so I was like, okay. Then I get into college and I'm writing the fanfic stuff. It was easier in college, because
Yeah.
I could write while I was doing laundry, and I had like a set schedule
Mhm,
for that.
mhm.
We need to do laundry. We need to do laundry on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
so, you have that dedicated time, and that makes it a lot easier to do these more long form projects as
Mhm.
opposed to like now we're grown up and it's like, where do I have 30 minutes in my calendar
You
today?
I don't know about you. You tell yourself that like you're going to wake up early and do 30 minutes before you go to work. No,
I
that's
ne-
the devil talking.
I never tell myself I'm gonna wake up early because I know that's a lie.
It's a
It's
lie.
it's okay. I'm gonna watch this show and that'll end at like 9, and then I'm gonna get on the computer and work after that before I go to sleep. 9:30 comes around, the show's ended. I'm like, "Ugh, I guess I should just go to bed."
Yeah. Or one more episode. One more. It'd be fine.
One more,
Mhm.
or the rest of the season, whatever.
I have to make myself do my writing before I turn on anything. Like, I have to use it as a reward. I have to be like, okay, Sadie, you are going to write 500 words. And as soon as you write 500 words, you can have the rest of the night to do whatever you want.
Okay, so you set yourself word count goals then, and 500 is a very manageable number.
Yeah, it depends on the project, the timeline. There are some times where I get, a short deadline and a huge word count, and it's like, what do you mean I have to edit 5 pages before I can do anything fun? But I try nowadays my tactics for creating are very much start early, break it into small doable things, do it right when I get home from work, and then spend the rest of the evening relaxing. And I'm finding that that works pretty well for me. The reward system, it like the serotonin in my brain of like I'm done and now I get to do whatever I want. It's actually fairly motivating.
I have, let's see, 38 and 12 ish. I've got like 50 pages to edit. It's fine.
Ooh. Hmm,
It's
it's
fine.
fine. Don't look
It's
at that.
no, I mean actually it literally is fine. But that kind of, gets into, you stay busy, and like, how do you keep yourself motivated to do like, design, to sit down and think, oh, I want to do a new project when you have all of these things ongoing, rather than just kind of just like, I have an idea and I'm going to do it, and then I lost it. It's gone.
That's a great question, and it's something that I had been struggling with, and I think still sometimes struggle a little bit with. But one of my goals for 2021 is actually book myself a little less. I'm saying no a lot more this year than I did last year, which is hard. I'm a people pleaser and I also have FOMO, and so saying no like crushes my little heart.
That was one
Uh
of my goals for last year.
oh no, Ginny. But
I said no to a lot of in-person things.
how many projects did you say yes to? Uh-huh.
Let's see.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
14, I think.
Oh.
No, more than that.
Oh
I'm
boy.
trying to count the editing ones too.
Oh no. Yeah. I have like a notepad where I keep a list of everything I've done.
Oh, I
Let's
have
compare.
I
Okay, hold
have
on.
I have a folder full of all this stuff here.
So last year I did 15 writing projects, 12 editing projects, and I contributed art to 7 projects. So that
Nice.
totals 35.
Oh, you got me beat then.
Uh it, it was rough. It was really rough.
Um, I had I had contributed writing in some form, whether large or small, to 11 projects, uh, editing to 13, and I can't draw, so I didn't do any art.
Still,
And
that's a
so,
lot. That's a
yeah,
lot.
and so, question from chat, how many of those did you create for yourself?
You know, let me open the list back up. How many of those did I create for myself? Not as many as you would think, actually. Um, let's
Yeah.
see. So, Darkness from the Stars was mine. Deathless Skies of Sire. Um, any Eberron people in here? It is Sire.
Yes.
Get that Siri out of here. Um,
Wait, do people say that?
yes, I've heard. I've heard Kiri. I've heard Siri. I've heard Kyre. It's clearly Sire. That's how the C works.
I mean, I got an episode of the Round Table with Keith Baker. I can go back and listen, but I'm pretty sure that he said it how you were saying it.
It's a hot debate. So
Uh,
let's see. From there I went actually into a long period of writing for everyone else. And it was like it was so cool because I was meeting people and networking and getting to see so many people. And I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand I think that in order to be a smart creator and a good creator, you should be keyed into what other people are doing,
mhm.
and you should try so many other things. So I was on Encounters in the Savage Underdark, Wisdom Under Fire, Adventurer's Domestic Handbook, Realigned, Darkhold, Eyes Unclouded. I helped Steve with his player primer, Icewind Dale. I tapped it on Supers and Sorcery. I was editing Steve's Night of Fright series. I edited Taiki's Torment with Ginny and Matt. I edited a couple other things like the Titan Attacks and the Ghastly Mess. I edited the Fight Your Mini series, and I was seeing so many incredible
Things.
things.
Yeah.
It was like, how do you go from like a Ghibli-esque adventure to like here are your domestic rules and rule sets to like Darkhold, let's make villains. Over to adventures, and I don't regret that. And in terms of what I personally did last year, Darkness from the Stars, Deathless Skies of Sire, the Deck of Multitudinous Things.
Mhm.
The latter two I did with Amber Litke. And then I did Ukaviel, the Recreant for MCDM and Arcadia. And so that's like 4 things, which isn't a ton when you think about how big my list was.
I mean,
Um,
so in my case, I guess it's gonna depend, like, for me or by myself, like, because those are different
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Uh,
That's definitely true too. Cause
cause like for me, I don't know, two,
two.
three. Uh, by myself, like 5. Oh my goodness, somebody raided Sky Raid. Ah,
Hello.
that's
Thank
exciting.
you.
Yes. Um, but yeah, I mean, just so much going on last year, and there were so many opportunities because everyone was at
Yes.
home all of a sudden, and they're all like, I have all this free time. I'm gonna make a
Yes.
project.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else has free time. Lo and behold, we no longer had free time because everyone thought we had free time.
Because suddenly, I know one of my goals actually this year is I started out this year with a bunch of NDA projects I can't talk about. But it's like I had a really big writing thing. I had a really big editing thing that took up a couple of months, both of them. I edited Leon's Bardcore Brawlers, which that was a joy. Go look at that one, everyone who's here, please. That is a particular joy.
Bardcore brawlers.
It's so good. And then I have another editing project, another writing project coming up. But my goal actually for the last half of this year is I want to make something for me again.
Yes.
That's like a huge goal, and that requires me saying no. Unfortunately, it requires me saying no to most things that come my way, and I probably will still take on a couple of projects. But I feel like something that happens in TTRPG design is that successfully in order to successfully do solo projects, you have to really carve out that time for yourself. And you have to say, no, I am doing this and
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying no to everything else. And that can be hard when so many people have so many cool ideas.
Exactly. Exactly. The temptation to say yes to everything is very real and also very much leads to burnout. I am I just wrapped up a 42,000 word editing project. I have another one or two of those.
Oh
Uh,
gosh. Yeah.
I have turned over a couple of NPC contributions, some monster contributions, and like you said though, like the theming on all of this has been like all over, and it's been so good though because it
Yes.
really broadens your like your perspective and also your skill set because I was really just like into narrative design and wasn't like monsters and subclasses. Let's do these things,
Mm-hmm,
mechanics and
mm-hmm.
math. Um, but like all of a sudden, like everybody's like, "Do you want to make some stat blocks?" And I'm like, "Sure," knowing that it's gonna
Yeah.
be math. It's
Yeah.
always math.
It's
Um,
always math. Ugh, math.
but like it's been really interesting too, and that and trying to do a subclass is like super interesting because you want to weave
Yes.
your narrative in with your balance and your math and
Mm-hmm,
everything. And
mm-hmm.
I guess my first go at that was um when Matthew and I for Taiki's tournament. So actually, let me run here, take a step back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Matthew approached me. We're gonna write this little project.
I'm already laughing.
We wanted to write something about Lathander and Taiki. And so backstory on Taiki. So Taiki was this goddess and got split into two goddesses that you might be more familiar with, Timora and Bashama. So those are the opposite
Mhm.
sides of the coins of fortune, whereas Taiki was a single coin and was apparently Lathander's one true love. And even though somehow he contributed to her being torn asunder, he feels entitled to have his long lost love back. And so we're just going to write this little thing and then we turn it into book club for a moment because we find out there's a novel that covers kind of exactly that topic. So
Oh
then
my
we then we
gosh.
then we have our book club and then we accidentally like I don't know, what was it? 60 pages? And yeah.
Yeah. It was long. It was long, but it was good and I loved it. But boy, that thing turned into a beast.
Yeah, on accident. Well, we started in and we created these NPCs to get everyone to travel around Waterdeep and to really, get in touch with the places and understand the different temples and the deities and what they're about. And to get all this backstory, you got to go and experience it because we don't want the DM just monologuing at you.
Hmm, hmm.
That's when you just kind of
Yep.
but so we, built those out. We gave them all a lot of personality and everything and then we're like now we got to give the locations a lot of personality, and now we got to explain like all the different, because you can set it in any season of Waterdeep to, so you can shove it into any season of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. And so we had to give background on all the various festivals that occur. And then we had to give background on our NPCs and background on our locations. And then we were like, well, it would be cool if this NPC had these abilities. That doesn't really exist. Let's make a subclass.
Yeah,
Whoa. We're
you
going to
know,
make magic
scope
items now, too.
scope creep is actually one of the things that I am looking out for the most this year. When people approach me and say, "Do you want to work on this?" I look at it and I go, "What is the chance that this scope will balloon?" Because I have been on too many projects where it started small and then my work just exponentially exploded because the project lead couldn't keep it in a tight scope. And if I have time, that's fine.
Right.
But if I took on a small scope expecting to line it up with a couple other small scopes and all of them balloon, all of a sudden I'm not getting sleep. I am eating takeout every day. I look like I've been electrocuted and I haven't showered in 3 days. And like,
You stop brushing your hair. You don't put on
yeah,
real clothes anymore.
yeah, you become like, I come like a little cave gremlin, and your husband just kind of like shoves food at you and then leaves.
Occasionally comes in, you have to go pee, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Scope creep is a big one for me. And I just realized I never actually answered your question, which is hilarious.
I don't even remember the question.
I know, it's you're too easy to talk to. But one thing I think is important when you're doing a lot of little projects or a lot of big projects, or just you have a lot of projects, is to find creative outlets and creative experiences that do not require that aren't for being published, that don't require any like hard mechanical
Mhm.
balance, or that aren't nobody's going to look at but you and your friends. Like, I find a lot of inspiration actually from just doing random things in my home D&D game, because there I can do whatever I want. No one is going to leave me a 1-star review because my monster wasn't balanced. Okay, I can I ran a game where and I did this I just wung it the entire time. Is wung? I winged it.
I was winging it the whole
I was
time.
winging it. Yeah. Okay.
What
Let's do. Yeah.
I
I
wing.
was.
I
I
don't
wung
know.
it. I don't think that's a word. I think I made that up. um.
So
I was
proposal wing dinging it.
wing dinging it. Yes, I love that. I was wing dinging it the whole time. They ran into some ghosts that I wanted to portray the 7 deadly sins, and I
Ooh.
used a bunch of sins that the people had given me. So I had, what did I have? I had envy, sloth, greed, and wrath, maybe. I don't remember.
Those are 4 of them.
Yeah, that's 4 of them. And it was so on the fly, but it was like, so envy could emulate any action that any PC had taken in the last turn, but with 0.5% effectiveness.
Yeah.
So if a cleric could heal someone, envy could heal one of their allies, but it was about half as effective. Or if someone threw a fireball and envy immediately whipped out a fireball with half damage. And that was really fun. Greed would take something from you. So if their attack hit, they would take like a hit dice or a
A
spell
spell
slot,
slot.
or
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, or gold or something.
Half your arrows.
Yeah, exactly. What else did I have? Sloth could inflict slow with no saving throw, but sloth could also only act every other turn.
I really just
And you
gotta
could,
get ready for it. Just give me a minute. I'm gonna.
yeah, just charging up. I'll get there. And then I think Wrath was like dealing, or no, Wrath could inflict you with rage and make you attack your allies
So
if
go
you.
berserk.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know if those were balanced. That's the joy of a home game and creating at home. I don't know if those are balanced, but having the ability to create freely and without the judging eyes of others and the concern for balance that's what keeps me going, is just
Mhm.
throwing things at my players and seeing what sticks. And if something really sticks and they really love it, then I go, okay, that might be worth developing in the future. Um,
Right.
and
And
also, like, please make time to, like, oh, you go ahead first.
I mean, that's just to say, pretty much like the same thing. I've been running a bunch of Theros games lately, and nobody's really familiar with Theros. So, like, I mean, it's not Adventurers League, so I just kind of like, okay, that's a good thought. All right, let me just make something up real quick.
Yeah,
We got in here, and you're interacting with it. How? Okay, you're gonna do this. Is this balanced? I don't know.
who knows? Uh, I and I think, like, also taking the time to, like, to watch things and soak it in. I was watching Shadow and Bone.
Oh my
What else have
god,
I
it was
been?
so good.
Okay, so I've read the Six of Crows duology, and it's one of my favorite books out there. And so every time the crows were on screen, I was just like heart eyes the entire time. I was like, I didn't even care as much about the other half, quite as much. The half was fine, but every time Kaz did anything, I was like, hello, my loves. Anytime Inej did anything,
Uh,
hello.
you've been requested to drop the hot Alicia takes.
To drop the what?
The hot Alicia takes.
The hot.
I don't know if that's supposed to say Alicia. It
Did you
certainly
mean
does.
it, Alina? Do you mean Alina? I
That's
have some hot Alina takes.
yeah. I was like Alina, Grisha. We
Yeah,
just smooshed them
okay.
together.
Yeah, here's my hot Alina takes. She spent the entire show reacting, and like, she didn't have a goal. Her only goal was be with Mal again, and we had to see the same like meadow scene 800 times. And so, like, if you ask me, like, what did Alina actually want, I don't know. And I don't think that every protagonist has to be active, but I think they should want something.
Well, though she did though. She just wanted to be normal. She didn't want to be part Shu. She didn't want to be like she just
I
wanted to have a normal childhood.
and I think that kind of narrative can last a certain amount of time, but I think at some point it has to be replaced with something.
Hmm.
Because if you spend the entire show, I remember reading a review of another show where they did the same thing. It was like the whole season was like, I don't want to be the protagonist. I don't want to be the chosen one. I don't want to, and it's like, you get to the last episode and they still don't want to, and you're like, well, then why are we here?
All right,
Uh,
Harry. Nobody cares if you want to be the chosen when you are.
you are. Let's go. I also introducing fantasy racism towards the shoe, completely unnecessary. Don't really know why that was in there, and it made it really uncomfortable for a lot of my AAPI friends to watch. It's
Yeah.
not in the books, so I'm not
I
certain.
I have to believe that they're using it to set up for, further issues that she's going to have in the next season because they kind of smooshed some books together to make this one.
Yeah,
And so obviously they're going to diverge further. But like I also was like you could have, I don't know.
yeah,
It did kind of highlight, the wanting to be normal though. Like
yeah.
but also like
And like, far be it from me to speak over Asian voices.
right.
There are a lot of
Uh,
people with a lot of different viewpoints on this. I just know that it made a lot of my friends really uncomfortable. And it was like, it was when you're contrasting it with the Crows, who have a very diverse cast with essentially no racism pointed toward them. They are just here, they're active, they're competent, they're doing a good job, they have these wild plans, and they always work, and it's always fun. The other half starts to feel like a drag. You're like, okay, when
you really start to kind of sympathize with West Ravka and be like, yeah, you should just, secede. It's fine. You guys are doing
yeah,
great over there.
just go. You're doing great. So those are some of my hot Alina side takes. I also don't feel like Mal really had a personality other than Alina, and it's like, can you give me something? Give me something to work with.
Nope, just stoic. Really loves his friend.
Just you could have replaced Alina's entire half with Alina and Mal like shouting each other's name repeatedly, and it wouldn't have really changed. Okay, it would have, but
Alina!
Mal.
It's true
But
though. I mean, there was so much opportunity there for better world building, better narrative, better character development, which I think is something that like a lot of writers struggle with. I mean, much less when you're converting it to um, television. Like that's a thing that like we've even had struggles with that in some of the published books. As for like bad portrayals, not great character development,
yeah,
and you know, so I mean, I'm gonna forgive the showrunners. I'll give them a
yeah,
little bit of, but I mean, that's kind of a hard thing to handle. But yeah, no, all of this pop culture stuff though does give like so much inspiration.
it
Um,
does.
I
Yeah,
know personally, I draw heavily from pop culture. Often not realizing necessarily that I'm doing it because like I'll get it and it comes in here and then I forget what it's from.
one thing that's really been inspiring me lately is I love the way that I love the way I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14 again.
Mm,
It's such a rabbit hole. But one thing that I really love is it is the perfect example of when you get into certain fights, it's a perfect example of showing the players mechanics with lower stakes and then introducing them with higher stakes. So I was just doing a fight today where you have a circular platform and it has these like rocks around the edge that keep you from falling off. And you do a couple of rounds where these rocks are still there, but
and
it
then they take
shows
them
you,
away.
yeah, and it shows you that if you get hit with a certain attack, you go flying back into the rock. And you go like, okay, this attack knocks back. And and then at some point he smashes down, the rocks crumble away, and you're just on a circle. But you already know at that point that if you get hit with this attack, you will go flying off the platform. And there's a lot of talk in TTRPGs about how we signal things,
Hmm.
because fights can very specifically become like just a stand and smack. And but then when you try to introduce something big and dangerous, the players can feel like came out of nowhere, right? Like, hang on, why would you just whip that out? Now we're all dying. And so the exploration of how do I signal that something big is about to happen? How do I teach them these mechanics on a smaller scale that isn't as deadly, and then have them learn without me telling them, just figuring it out, and then introduce it on a bigger and deadlier scale?
Right.
I think, like, if you're a game designer, go play other games, because like just the fact of me sitting here going, okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's how they do that in the first round, and then that's how they do it in the second round, and then that's how they do it in the third round. Like, that can be so informing in terms of how we push our own TTRPG game design.
And I think too, like a lot of that is necessary to like provide more tools to the DMs as far as like, okay, so you've got a monster and you're fighting them, and like once you get them down to like, I don't know, we'll go for this example. You get them down below half health, it triggers like this transformation in them where all of a sudden like, well, they're real fucking mad, and like
Yeah.
they go into this kind of rage and like superpower some of their attacks. Like you need to be able to like visually describe that, like, okay, of course, like that you've gotten them below half health. Okay, they're bloodied, which isn't technically a mechanic. I know, but whatever. Everyone still
It should
uses
be.
it.
Yeah.
Um, there's a section about being able to describe them as barely damaged, kind of damaged, a lot of damage, which is the same thing, everybody.
It's the same thing.
Um, but other than knowing that you've gotten them to half health, you really need to be able to like visually describe this transformation that's taking place. So if you have this creature and it was like made out of, I don't know, like lava stone looking stuff, and you get them below half health and you start to see these cracks form in it, and you can see the magma in it, and then the next person goes up and as soon as they touch them they take fire damage. You're like, ow, I've learned something. But
Hmm.
you need to visually be able to describe like the change that's happening, and I think that goes along really with what you're saying there. And like it's an important tool to have. It's like maybe they don't know what the consequence is going to be, but they know something changed, and
Yeah.
they're going to very quickly in that case find out. You go up and hit it and you're like, ow, it burns now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, something burns.
It
Yeah,
previously did not burn, but now it does.
yeah.
Oh, cold take 4E was good actually. I don't know if that's a cold take. I think most people would still consider that a hot take.
Uh, I follow a bunch of people who think that 4E is really, really amazing. So whenever I run into someone who thinks 4E was really bad in the wild, I'm like, oh, there are people like this. I didn't actually play 4E, but I've heard many good things.
I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't like it. Like it had a lot of good things, right? Exactly. Like it had very straightforward ways of, this is how the attacks function. This is how many attacks you can get per day. It was like very straightforward, like you said with Final Fantasy. It was more, you could see what you had left and you could assume that, like, okay, your opponent has very similar in that they've got these utility powers, they've got some powers, and then they've got their daily. Like once they use the big boom daily, you're like, well, they can't use that again until tomorrow.
Haha.
So it definitely gave you like a lot of structure,
Yeah.
which is very
And
contentious. Either you love it or you hate it.
that's the thing. Like even in my home group, there's so much talk about who loves structure, who doesn't love structure. Like some people in our home group are like, I want more mechanics on social interactions, and other of us are like, I don't want social interactions to feel like a currency exchange where you put something in and then you get out positive I like you points. Like they want that to feel more organic, and that's kind of one of the things about game design is just we can never please everybody.
Hmm. I get a lot of groups sometimes, they're really into the role play and everything, and then you get that one person who's like optimized their character, and they're constantly like, okay, I want to roll a nature check. Okay, well, tell me what you're doing. Okay, you've explained it very well. There's no need to roll. You succeed. And then they're just like crestfallen because
Yeah,
they really wanted to
they
roll
want
dice. And I'm
they
like,
want to roll their dice.
I don't need to make checks for everything. I just need you, for the most part, like, tell me what you're doing. And if I'm like, okay, it's kind of dubious as to whether or not that succeeds, so we'll go ahead and make a roll. But if you're like, I can speak with animals, and I go up to the little squirrel and I get down and in a really calm and comforting voice explain that, like, we're not here to set your forest on fire. We're here to find out who did that. Who hurt you?
Mm-hmm.
And then the squirrel's like, oh, okay, so you're not down here like squishing me or making fire, so like, okay, I kind of trust you. And the squirrel just tells you,
Yeah, yeah. And
like,
that's the thing. And I'm very much you and I seem like similar DMs where it's like if you tell me that you have something really smart planned, I don't need you to roll because I don't want to leave it up to the whims of fate, right? Like what I don't want to have happen is that you tell me that your plan is really smart and then you roll a one.
one.
I and that's something that I've been noticing more and more lately is but one of the things that's been pushing me to try different games is I don't actually like how swingy D&D 5e is. I don't like that I can be theoretically good for something and then fail 70, like if I have a bad roll streak I can fail like 80% of my rolls. That doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't. If my character is supposedly good at this thing, I had an adventure I ran where I don't remember what it was, but the numbers were abysmal. It was like I
You,
just so happened for an entire adventure that like maybe 80% of my rolls were under 10.
you were just
It,
having a really bad, no good day as your character.
she was having a very bad no good week. It was like and that's something I want to explore in future game design is okay, how do you have someone who, when they're supposedly good at something, they can feel good at that thing, but then you still keep the game randomness aspect of it and the ability to fail? And I think that's a hard question that a lot of systems struggle to answer.
And I think in like an instance like that, that's like a place where you can definitely use like the advantage mechanics. Okay, if you're exceedingly good at it, then I mean, why wouldn't you be twice as likely to succeed? You give them two rolls. Like, I mean, there's a lot of instances where I don't think that's fully realized. There's too much emphasis on like static bonus.
Yeah.
And like, if you've got someone who like they went and they spent 12 years training to, in 12 years training
Yeah.
to be an expert locksmith and lockpicker, they go up and like, if they roll a 1 on their thieves tools to unlock this, they spend 12 years. You let them roll it again.
It's just
If
let
they
'em roll.
still rolled a 1, you let them get really angry at whoever sold them shitty lock picks.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Yeah. And I think advantage is sort of underutilized. I think because I think DMs are afraid of giving advantage because it's like, well, I don't want to make this too easy. Well, then only give it when it's appropriate. But don't be afraid to let your players like succeed at something.
You
Like
can give them advantage all the
shocker.
time and, raise the difficulty checks accordingly. Like if
Yeah.
ever, like I have a 300-foot cliff that people have to scale in the Theros adventure I run. You got claws as a Leonin that can help you dig in. Okay, you got one advantage. Going to lower the DC a bit. Someone has gone ahead of you and used a rope. You actually get to roll advantage now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the more things you have that are helping you up this cliff,
Yes. Yes.
the easier
Very
it's
much.
going to be on you.
Yeah. I think we're kind of very
Meanwhile, if you're a centaur trying to scale this cliff, we're going to have a bad time.
disadvantage DC 25.
Which actually then really kind of brings out the teamwork. People, they come to this cliff, the centaur in the party is like, okay, okay, well, I weigh this much.
Yeah.
They're all
So
like trying to figure out physics and pulleys and like, okay, so get this teamwork going on.
yeah. So I know we've only got a couple minutes left, but this actually reminds me of a conversation I had the other day that I think goes into how I feel about game design really
Mhm.
well. Someone said, like, when you talk about yes but game design, they're like, okay, let the players have their weird ideas, but make it a challenge, like, give them disadvantage or raise the DC or and what was the other one? I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I'm very much of the opposite. If you want players and in the ideal game design, I want players to have the most creativity possible. I
Mhm.
want them to look at their abilities and go, I have got this weird idea. Can I do it? And if you as a DM hear that and you go, sure, but let's do that at disadvantage. What you're actually telling them is, no, I want you to only do things rules as written. I want you to just if there's a sleeping guard and I have illusion magic and someone else has this came up in a game. I had illusion magic and someone else had a familiar. And the familiar could mimic voices.
Ooh.
So we created a diversion across the courtyard where I illusioned an animal and the mimic made the animal sounds and we pulled this guard away just long enough for us to slip through the door. And if a DM had looked at that and said, that's kind of weird and you've never done that before, do that at disadvantage, what you're really telling me is, no, just roll stealth, I guess. Like, no, let's stick to abilities as they've been given. Roll stealth or
Ooh.
put him to sleep. And I think DMs are sometimes scared of creativity. Like
Mhm.
we hear a new idea and we're like, oh, that could break my game. I need to give that disadvantage. These can't newfangled like creative ideas, but it ideally your story should respond positively to these out of the box ideas. And if they have them make a flat performance roll, no disadvantage. And if that happens to fail, then the story responds accordingly. Um, and that's kind of where I've started to come in with game design is I want to encourage people to think outside the box. I want to encourage them to try crazy, zany, like wild new ideas. And I want as DM for them to feel empowered when they do that.
I think my favorite example that I've had of that recently, like a player getting like super creative and everything. He had the sage background. He's like, I've learned a lot of stuff, right? I've researched so much stuff, and they had determined, they're like, we think we're fighting a bird, and he's like, okay, sage background. Um, I might not remember it. I might remember it. So do you think I should make a roll? And I'm like, okay, so this is something you may or may not remember. Yeah, let's make a roll. He rolls really good, and I'm like, you remember like all sorts of books. What is it that you think you know? And like he pulls something from his actual knowledge. Birds are afraid of themselves, other birds. And so
What?
and so he's like, and I'm like, yeah, no, you totally remember reading that. So he goes into the marketplace and, custom orders someone to make a kite of a bird. He's gonna take this bird kite
That's so cool.
and go and, you know, go off to this fight and like bring in this bird, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this is gonna go so well. Like, there's gonna be this bird flying in the sky, and the other one's gonna be so distracted, it's gonna go up there because ain't no bird gonna be on my turf.
Yeah.
And then
I love
we're
that.
just gonna take the little egg, and we're just gonna scoop before anybody knows what happened, and nobody got hurt.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. My players are can be just as we
Birds are evil.
birds are evil. They are evil. We had I introduced a dungeon where the angel villain is trying to break a seal to unleash his evil god. And there is also a giant sleeping dragon down there. And it's an ancient dragon that used to serve that evil god. And my players come to me and they're like, we want to siphon energy from the sleeping dragon to empower the seal and make it harder to break. And I am like, that is whack. I love that.
Explain to me the ritual that you're using. How does
Yeah.
it go?
How does it go? And so like we came and so I was like, okay, I would need you to have like 2 anchors, and like I want you to tell me what you make them out of and like why this would bind them. And I want you to explain to me the words in the ritual, and I give them some parameters and they just go for it. And I think, and it would have been so easy for me as DM to be like, no, fight my dragon, losers. But like, you hear those things
It was
and
an
you're like,
option, though. Okay, if they wanted to, they could have fought the dragon.
if they wanted to, they could have fought the dragon. But you hear those things, and I think that as DM, my greatest joy is going, yeah, that is dope. Tell me how you do it. Let's do this.
Walk me through it. Walk me through it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I like it. Give me some more of that.
I don't understand how it works, so you're gonna have to tell me. But yeah, exactly. And I think embracing that creativity and bringing it in, and also like, uh, you know, damned if that's not like the best source of inspiration for creators is like
Mhm.
players. Like a player does something, and you're like, that doesn't exist, but it should.
Yeah. But it should.
Because I could make a not really sentient, but like a bird kite that has gears and whatnot and flaps around on its own and make that a magic item. And like
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that, but this guy's like,
Right?
I'm gonna make a kite of a bird, and I'm like the only challenge here that I actually had him do after that was like, you need to explain to the merchant who has no idea what you want, what you need. You need to explain it to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm gonna sketch it. I'm not a very good sketcher. My character's not a good sketcher either, so this is gonna go terribly. But I was just like, that's a great place to start. I'm gonna sketch it. He's like, I'm gonna sketch it on the wall of his building. Nobody in this group has paper. I was like, what are you sketching it with? Nobody in this group has pens or ink or quills. My blood. And I'm like, okay, that's unnecessary. He totally has a quill and paper.
He pulls out a pen. He looks at you in horror. Like
I'm like, no. There's not paper. No. Don't dirty my walls.
no.
I
Oh
insist. But yeah, like improv, engaging, and like I think that's
yeah. Do you ever feel like the hardest part of game design is allowing that to happen organically in the bones that you create? Like,
I mean, sometimes. I mean, I do want to toot my own horn here, actually.
all right, yeah.
Like, so for the season 10 epic that Connor Self and I wrote, like parts 1 and 2, like it's literally just like, here's your objectives. Like literally anything you can explain to your DM that accomplishes this, you did it. Great job.
I love those sections. I love those sections. Yes.
It's like 2 hours of just like, so how do you want to do this?
Yes. We had in my home game, it was so fun. So the archangel that I mentioned who's trying to bring back his evil god, and he's too high of a CR for them to fight right now. He's brutal. He would have killed them, especially because a couple of them are on their last legs. They were already low on health. And so I was like, okay, we can't do a traditional combat, but what can we do? And this was, my players loved this. So this isn't just me tooting my own horn and going, oh, I think that, like, I think I had a good idea. No, they haven't stopped talking about how cool it was. So I will toot my own horn here too.
Yeah,
We will.
I'm only doing that as well because I've gotten so much positive player feedback. If I hadn't, then I
Yeah,
would be like,
don't look at that. Yeah. So what we did was a really cinematic. I had him attack. Aravel was attacking. There were 8 council members
Mm-hmm.
that Aravel was trying to kill. He didn't care about the players, but he was trying to kill the council
Yeah,
members.
they have the power. The characters are.
Yes. And so what I did is we basically had what was effectively a skill challenge, kind of like yours, where I was like, okay, he is swinging his sword at so and so. What are you doing to defend them? And I would let them do anything. It was like, do you want to use a feature? Do you want to use a spell? Do you want to
You want to throw some
barge in there?
pocket sand?
Yeah. And then, it was like, okay, he's now turned around and he's shooting a spell at so and so. What do you do? And we had someone use the fighter was using her maneuvers in really clever ways. The warlock pulled out a no, she's a bard now. I'm so sorry. uh, she she pulled out a really clutch counter spell, and then kind of allowed the council member to fight back. I let the cleric burn some hit dice to cast a spell that he didn't have the spell slots for technically, but then he fainted when he failed his wisdom save.
He called on the power of his god. He's like, they cast the
Yeah,
spell and then was like, okay, now I'm tired.
okay, I'm done now. And it was like they were so, one of them, the ranger pulled out, I gave her these thunderclap arrows that like do a little bit of a boom when they hit, and so
It's like those sticks at the stadiums.
yeah, and I narrate the angel pulling out a long sword and hurling it toward this guy's chest, and the ranger cuts in. She's like, I want to shoot an arrow and knock it off course, and I'm like, that's dope as heck. Yeah, like, okay, roll your arrow attack, and she rolls like a 22, and I'm like, you divert it, and it like, and we kept it very fast paced and very cinematic. Like, my goal was to make sure they walked away from that feeling really cool. So every time I would describe something, it was like, you feel him bearing down on you, and you're managing to protect this person. You hear them trembling as they breathe and they start running, and they walked away from that. It was not a traditional combat. It wasn't even anything rules as written, but they walked away from that feeling like the heroes of a movie who just had the coolest action sequence they had in many sessions.
They were all like, we definitely should be dead right now.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, we should be dead right now. And like, I don't know, I love creating opportunities like that where it's like, you people walk away feeling really cool.
That's so much fun. Okay, we could talk about this topic for probably like 6 more
I know.
hours at least.
I know.
But we are actually slightly over time.
I don't feel like we talked about anything. Are you sure?
I know.
I feel like we had so much more to talk about. We haven't even talked about M dashes.
All right, tune in next time for more player creativity and M dashes.
Yes, tune in next time where Ginny and I talk about how everyone should use M dashes more than they do.
And why doesn't everyone know the keyboard shortcut for them?
Remember, it's not hard. Alt 0151.
Mm-hmm. That's it, everybody.
Okay.
And if you can't remember that, it's 151, like Bacardi 151.
You're welcome.
Um, no, but with that, so we are gonna have to wrap. Do you have any projects that you can plug that you want to plug right now? Otherwise, just tell everyone where they can find you online. Maybe play some of your amazing games.
Oh my gosh. What can I plug right now? Okay. Amber, I know I'm like lost, trapped in NBA land. Okay. So, Amber Litke and I a couple months ago released the Deck of Multitudinous Things. It is filled with story seeds. The idea is that it is a narrative-driven deck of many things that can inspire side quests, arcs, or even entire campaigns. So if you're ever looking for randomized tables of story ideas, check that out. Check out Leon's Bardcore Brawlers. That published this year, and I think Leon is brilliant and an incredible designer. I don't know why I'm using this time to hype somebody else, but do it.
Yeah,
Check out
I linked that one in chat earlier.
Yes. I have some cool stuff coming out eventually, so if you can find me
before Christmas, maybe.
So if you want to keep up to date with me and find out what these incredibly cool things are eventually, I am on Twitter at incandescent, except there's an A in it.
Right
Incandescent.
Right below your face.
Right below my face. And so yeah. Come along this ride with me. I'm secretly working. I can tell you this. I'm trying to do a little design Kickstarter potentially later this year if I can commit myself to doing personal work. So keep an eye out for that. I think that was going to be cool.
I think you should commit to that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
I solemnly swear.
That you're up to no good. All right, I know how this goes.
Yeah.
All right. So, upcoming guest list, pretty great. Next week we have Josh Simmons. It is a pre-recorded segment, but I'll be hanging around in chat. And then I'm gonna have Steve Pinkatai and I appearing here and also on the Dungeon Con Twitch stream.
Ooh.
And then we have Kat Evans, Latia Jaquise, Stephen Garcia, and Chris Bissett lined up. And I'm going to be scheduling out people for July. If you're interested in being on in July, go ahead and shoot me a message. You can contact me on all the social medias at Jenny Loveday. And you can find me here every Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central. Yeah. And then you can find me some evenings, like tonight. The Sunday evening after the Baldman Virtual Weekends, doing the Baldman HQ Roundup, talking about the show, talking about the premieres, talking about the cool stuff, and
Jenny, is there anything you don't do?
I don't know, maybe. Talking about the Moonshays tonight with Eric Mingy and Tony Winslow Brill. And tomorrow night, Jeff Stevens, Jeff Talks RPGs, talking with Mike Shea, Anthony Joyce, Teo Sabadia, and Ryan from 2C Gaming. Apologies, Ryan, I can't remember your last name right now. But that's all this week. And yeah, we'll be doing a bunch of other stuff. And you can find me on the internet. You know, I'm just always on the internet. That's pretty much it, yeah.
You're just on the internet.
Always, at all times. Omniscient, omnipresent? I'm not really sure.
What is being offline? I can't remember.
Is that a thing people do?
I think so.
Weird. Well, with that, though, we are going to wrap it up for this episode of The Designer's Den. So until next time, everyone.